Um, so a couple weeks ago, my mom called me, and my mom has had a history of melanoma, which is a type of skin cancer. She's had a couple different occurrences from when she was a kid and a young adult, just going out in the sun, hanging out on the lake, whatever, and not wearing sunscreen. And so anyways, later down the road, she started developing occurrences of skin cancer. The last one was probably when I was in third grade, which, that was quite a while ago, like maybe like 95-ish or something like that. So she's been doing well ever since. So a couple weeks ago, she calls me, and my mom's terrified. In the matter of 1 week, basically, she had a mole pop up, which is generally a bad sign when one shows up really abruptly and suddenly. It started out like a light pink. At that point it's like, okay, well, this is happening, nothing too alarming, we're just going to keep an eye on it.
Over 31 years ago, our first child was born, Krista, and we were so excited, and she was born the day after Christmas, and so she was kind of our Christmas gift. And when she was born, I didn't notice anything wrong with her. She seemed just fine. And of course, I'm a new mom. I probably wouldn't have noticed if she just had 2 toes, so it really didn't matter, And so about several hours later, the doctor came in, and he had just a sad, sad face on himself. And he said, "Have you noticed that your daughter's arm is not working properly?" And my husband and I were totally shocked. We hadn't noticed it all. And he said, well, her arm was damaged. Her deltoid muscle was damaged in her left arm when she was born, and probably it will be one of those little shriveled up arms. Well, she'll just have a hand that's just at the end of a tiny little arm that's about a foot long, and it will never grow any longer than that. He said it doesn't look very, very good. And so we immediately went to prayer, and it didn't look bad at the time, but we knew that we had a pretty serious situation on our hand.
About 3 days later, it had started to turn brown. It had doubled in size, which, anytime you start getting bigger moles, that becomes a problem. And when you start seeing colors changing, that's another problem. So over the course of this week, by the end of the week, it had started showing black as well as the brown, which by the time you start seeing, all of those factors plus variations in color and size and shape, you need to go see a doctor. And so my mom works at a hospital. She talked to one of the nurses, at the end of the week on a Friday or a Thursday, and told the nurse, hey, this is what I've got. What do you think? The nurse told her, without a doubt, immediately, as soon as possible, go see a doctor. And so that Friday afternoon, my mom went in and saw a doctor. The doctor was concerned about it, but because it was at the end of the day and it was last minute, for whatever reason, he didn't have the time or the resources to do anything to treat it at that time. And so he said, come back in on Monday and we're going to take this out.
And we would notice as she grew, it was 1 month and 2 months old and 3 months old. And her arm wasn't getting any better. She never moved that arm. And a lot of times her head would be kind of cocked to the side, because you could tell that the muscle in her arm was affecting her whole neck and her arm. And it was a very dire situation, but we kept doing the exercises, and we were praying that God would totally heal her. And 3 months went into 4 months, and 4 months went into 5 months, and 5 months went into a half a year. And we began to think that surely she was going to be one of those little babies and those little girls, and then a grown woman that would not have a working arm.
Naturally, this is something that was really stressful to her and just emotionally devastating, because, she thought she had, for the past 10, 15 years, she's been taking great care of her skin. and now all of a sudden, you know, it's back again. And it was alarming, especially because of the rate that it was growing. So she calls me and she tells me about it, and you know, asks me to pray for her. And I prayed harder in that weekend, over that weekend, that day, than I've ever prayed for anyone in my life.
I'd put her to bed, and nothing was changing. And and we kept praying and praying and praying, and we had so many people praying for Krista that her arm would once again be totally healed. And the next morning I got her up, and her arm, keep in mind, her arm had not moved. She had not been able to move her arm. She had moved her right arm all over, but her left arm just hung like a limp little dish rag. And I woke her up the next morning, and both of her arms were flopping around like this. And we knew that a total instantaneous healing had happened.
So by the end of the weekend, you know, my mom is set to go in Monday afternoon after work to go see the doctor and have that mole removed. And she wakes up in the morning and it's completely gone. And there's no sign of it, there's no scarring, there's no scabbing like it was torn off or anything like that. It was just gone.
And we knew that God had moved in and touched her. And now she is finishing up her 9th year of English teaching in high school. She loves her high schoolers so much. And both of her arms work really, really well, so she can slap all the high schoolers around. And we're just really, really so rejoicing of that incident in our life. And it will be a time that we will never, never forget, because we knew that God touched her from the bottom of her toes to the top of her head.
He had no explanation. And that coupled with the prayers of me, the rest of my family, and some close friends, there's no other explanation other than that God worked and God moved as a result of people interceding for my mom. And you know, it's nothing short of a miracle.